power card. Just hold on 1 second, please. Sorry guys, yeah. So I just plugged in my power card. So let's go ahead and then do the SnowSQL part of it. So Snowflake, NoSQL, download. Okay. So installing SnowSQL, I have already installed SnowSQL on my desktop. So you can also do it. So you go to the, you can just Google it, Snowflake, SnowSQL download, and then you'll get Snowflake client repository. And click on it, and this is 1.2 version, and it has different versions in it. So Windows is for Windows, Linux, and Darwin is for Mac. So if you are
Shekhar sir, your screen is not visible, sir. I think you are not sharing.
Yeah, we can't see.
Yeah, nobody mentioned me about that. Yeah. So go to your SnowSQL download on Google, easiest way, SQL download. It will take you to an URL. You click on it, and then installing SnowSQL. You have the Snowflake client repository. You can click it from here, and you can do it. Or the easiest way is right. Go to your trial version. I'm working on it. Yeah. So this is my trial version. Go to help, download, and you have CLI client. This is much more easier for you. Okay, you select it, and then Snowflake Linux, Windows, Mac OS. Click on it. It takes you to the same thing. Whatever I've showed you before, right? The same thing. And Windows X for Windows, Darwin for Mac, and Linux for Linux. You just download, and you see different versions of SnowSQL. Go ahead and download the latest one. You click on it, you download the latest one, and once you install it, right, you can go to your command prompt. I'll give you the exact document what to do. I have the document, I will share it with you, but right now I'm just trying to tell you, right? So when you want to connect to your account, so what is the account that you have? Yesterday we talked about the account details, right? Where was it? 1 second. Yeah, this is the one, right? So this is my entire account URL, and this is the account name. Okay, and we talked about if you're trying to work in a company and how would the accounts, so they'll have the company name -dev stage or whatever the naming conventions that particular company follows, right? You can have that as well. Okay, so when you're trying to connect to SnowSQL, right, the commands that you have to use snow sql hyphen a account name. Normally sometimes you can give until AWS as well. So I'm just trying to take the account name. -u, your username, whatever you logged in the username, right? Yes, modem, and then enter. After installation of your SnowSQL, go to your command prompt, click on SnowSQL, and then give this command. And I have to enter my password. Sometimes the folder in which you have installed might not have permissions. You might not have installed it as an admin, so it doesn't have permissions. So you might run into an error. So you have to go and give the permissions for that particular folder where you have installed Snowflake. And if you run into any issues, you can ping me in the WhatsApp group that we have. I can help you out. Not a problem. This shouldn't take this long. I'm not sure. I have a document how to set up and all this stuff. I will share you the document as well. Let's get into this. Hmm. I'm able to log in here. I'm not able to log in here. I'm not sure what is going on. Oh, I think my trial version has been ended or something. This is not my user ID. I think let me go and check my user ID. Yeah, this is the one. One second, guys. I'm not able to connect. Hold on a second. This is the one what I have given. Okay. So it should work both with the only the account name, or you can give the account name, region until the cloud provider. So it should work both of them. Both should work. If I let me come out and then try one more time. Let's see how many. Okay. So and the other part, right? You don't need to, because every time you have to go and copy this particular account name from your URL, paste it, and all this stuff, right? So there is another way where the moment you install your SnowSQL, right, you will have something like, if you go to your user profile, see users, you will have whatever the name of your laptop or desktop or computer, right, getting into it, and you will see dot SnowSQL file folder. So there will be a dot SnowSQL folder that I have mentioned in the document that I'm going to send you to install it. So you open this and you will see a config file. You right click on the config and then edit with any of this one, and they have given the connections dot example. This is the alias that you are going to do. For example, you have a dev environment stage, prod, you have multiple environment that you are trying to connect to in your work environment, right? So you can configure this is the SnowSQL is a client, right? You can configure this so that you don't need to enter the username, the account name and password and everything all the time. And the values that you can pass to that particular connections is, right, your account name, region, username, password, DB name, schema name, warehouse name, role name, proxy host and proxy port. So you can give all of them. Normally what we do, right, we just go and give username and password. So this is my devm means Mumbai account. This previous account was in North America and it got expired. So this is my, I have created an alias. This is how you have to create. Copy this connections dot example and then make a copy of it and paste it and then give an alias, whatever the alias you want. Dev, stage, prod. Guys, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Uday, probably you have some issue with your thing. All the other folks can hear me, right?
Yeah, yes.
Yes, sir.
Shekhar.
Cool, very good. Yeah. So you can create an alias for your connection and then you can give your account name, username, password, and when you are trying to connect, you can use like this. This is still connecting. I don't know what's happening with this, but anyway, let me take. This is kind of IDE. It will most SnowSQL client, right? It is kind of semi IDE. The moment you type something, it throws out and tells you what is the database, what is the schema. It helps you to write the SQL much better than the worksheet. So worksheet, whatever you can do in SnowSQL, you can do it in worksheet as well. And I want you to guys to get used to the SnowSQL part of it as well, because sometimes when you're in your work environment, right, you have to set up your jobs, the background jobs that should run, and then you should know how to debug it. All the backend jobs run through SnowSQL, or you might have any. Yeah,
Shekhar, 1 second. In real time, we are going to connect to command prompt or Unix. Which one you are prefer to go?
no, where is your SnowSQL? See, there are, you might have your laptop and you can install SnowSQL on your laptop and you can connect to your prod environment, stage environment, whatever the dev environment, normally dev environment where you dev and stage where you'll be working on. So you can use the worksheet part of it, whichever is comfortable to you. What I mean to say
Yes.
is, right, this is,
That is fine. For example, backend, whatever job execution or connecting SQL, everything, we'll use Unix also, right?
that means Unix means if you have installed your SnowSQL on Linux, then if you're working on the server part of it, then you can go and then use connect to that SnowSQL and work on it as well. But I don't think you will be given the prod access to work on the SnowSQL that is installed on the Linux boxes.
Okay.
Okay, you will have something, you have to install something as your client and then you will be working from your laptop as a client. Once you have your code ready in dev stage, then the code gets deployed to prod, and probably you, unless until if you are an admin, then only you might have some access to check what is going on the Linux box. If not, you won't be given access to it.
Okay.
Okay, but you definitely have access to the other folders when you're trying to do data ingestion logs. You can go and check all the stuff, you might have access to it as well, but the development and the stage that you will be doing it from your laptop only, right? So whichever is preferable. If you have access on Linux environment, you can log in and you can work on it as well.
Okay.
So this particular thing is not working for me anyway. So if you are trying to connect to the so there are two ways that you can connect to SnowSQL. I'll just write it down here. Where is Uday? Can you hear me? Okay, he's not able to understand. everybody can. Okay, so where is this? I'll just open a new. Okay, SnowSQL hyphen a, then account name hyphen u. Okay, and then username. So this is what you're gonna use for connecting to SnowSQL. What is the account name? Account name is something like your in the URL, right? You have gmgx23rt dot okay. So and then ap south one dot AWS. You have to give this particular thing. Somehow it's not working for me on this one. Still it's trying to figure out where it is, but normally you should, this is the account name, and if you pass this, that should be good enough for you to connect back. Okay, and then and the username is whatever the user that you have logged in as, your username. It will connect you to this particular environment. Okay, and if you're trying to connect using your config file, right, the config file is somewhere. If you go to your user profile, see users, and then laptop name, and then .sql snowsql, and it has the config file. You edit the config file with notepad or anything, and then you'll have the connections like this, connections.example. You make a copy of it, and then this is my, I'll take this out. Okay, this is not working for me anymore. Okay, I can remove this as well, but I'm just keeping it anyway. So I am trying to connect like this. I changed my devm is an alias, just an alias. Whatever you want, you can put, and you can connect the account name, username, password, and then you save this file. Come back. This thing is killing. It's not getting cls NoSQL hyphen c. When you are trying to use your config file, then say hyphen c. Like, where is this last? SnowSQL hyphen c, and your alias name, whatever the alias name that you have given, alias name. And my alias name is right devm, devm, development Mumbai APAC Mumbai is what I was trying to. Something wrong with, normally if you just pass the account name, that should be good enough for you. And it's asking me to give the entire account name dot the cloud provider region, and then the um, cloud provider name, whether it's an AWS or Azure or whatever. Okay, looks like there is a problem without, if not giving the, let me go ahead and change this, and then
I
I'll
think there
just,
was an additional dot. Yeah.
that should be, yeah. You can just pass, this is the account name normally for sure, but just save this. This is pretty much fast. I'm there. So the moment you connect, right? So when you connect your sheet, you'll have this. When you just open a worksheet, you'll have your role, your warehouse, database, schema, and compute WH is my default warehouse. Whenever a user gets created, you can have a default warehouse as well, default database, default schema, default role. Okay. Now, if you go and type something, right? Select show tables. Tables. It shows me all the tables, but I've logged in as a sysadmin, right? Select current, current role. So I'm sysadmin. So it shows me all the tables that I have access to. Okay. So there are commands that, so as and when I type the commands, you have to remember them or note it down. So that becomes easier for you to, because if you take an entire session on SnowSQL, you forget that. As and when needed, when we type here, you tend to remember much more faster. Okay. So if you want to see any tables, show tables. I will give you all the NoSQL commands and everything. 1 second. Okay, it's my training. So I have NoSQL.ppt, which helps you to how to copy domain. I have given 3 steps how to do all this stuff. This should help you how to connect to the details. Okay, and then I have the commands that helps you. I'm going to send you in the WhatsApp group. So what are the commands? How do you work with them? You can get it from the help as well, but as and when we teach, right, you can definitely understand more. So the first part, when you look at this, right, there is no database here, no schema here. What will you do if you hear there is no warehouse here, no database here, no schema here? What you normally do when you're working on the worksheet, you go and click on the context sensitive menu and then say warehouse, whatever the warehouse that you are available to, and database, whatever the database that you have. Okay, SFDB is my database, and for this particular it shows all the schemas, SF schema. Okay, this is what it is, sysadmin compute. And if you go and run here, select current role, it gives you sysadmin is a current role. Okay, sysadmin, current warehouse, compute WH, and then select current database. Okay, SFDB, select current schema, SF schema. You got it right? So I'll go and use another one. So all of them are empty now. I can say use database SFDB. You know that that is your database. Okay. What happens if you see now the SFDB is populated, and by default you select a database. The default schema is public. So you'll see public schema here unless until you go and change use schema SF schema, and see the schema name got changed. And you want to change your warehouse, use warehouse com compute WH, and then you will see that's the warehouse gets changed. The same way whatever you have done here, right, you can come and do it here. But this is much more interactive. use. If I want to set up the database, what should I use here? Use database. It shows you the database, or if you are on the database part of it, right? If you removed, you type use, it shows you all the databases that you have access to. And I can select, you can scroll down SFDB and click on tab, or scroll up, enter, go back, semicolon, statement executed. Now you see, right, the database got modified. And then if you want to change the schema, use schema, SF schema. Okay, so and in the warehouse is already there, and there are a lot of show commands, show, and then what else we have? Show tables, show sequences, show views, all this stuff are there. Show, and it shows you all the columns, databases. You type show on your SQL command, it shows you all this stuff: file formats, functions, grants, and then roles, schemas. All the objects that are present in this particular SF schema can be here. Show users, views, warehouses, logs, and all this stuff. So I'll say show tables, and I have a bunch of tables here: customer, test2, weblog. So these are the tables that have, and then I can do create a table. You can do all these SQL statements on top of it. Okay, and then if you go to the history, if you go to the same place where I have gone, the user profile, right? See, user profile, users, del PC, and then .NoSQL. And if you go to the history part and open that particular, then next part, right, whatever the commands that I have typed here, everything comes here. Show tables, use schema, current role, current user, all this stuff, whatever that you type in your NoSQL, that gets populated in your history part of it, in the history file. Okay, so I have a couple of other topics that I have covered. So one second, let me show you as part of the architecture, right? So we have talked about the 3-layer architecture that we have, and the connectivity part of it, web UI, command line. And if you have any of these, so let's go back, and if you go to the help download, you will have all the other options. If you want to have a JDBC driver, you can download it, ODBC driver, Python components if you are working with Python, Node.js if you are working with Node.js, Spark if you are having a Spark to connect your stuff, and then you can go Snowflake driver. This is for the diagnostics. We'll talk about it later. Snow City. Both of them are obsolete. We don't use these two, but we basically use this one on JDBC, ODBC, Python, and whomever wants to work on Node.js or Spark, they can do it. Okay, and then so the preview apps. Did we see this preview apps? So preview apps is kind of new feature that Snowflake provides, and then they let you play around with it and then do work on it. That is called the preview apps. So this is the dashboards, and then the data exchange, and if you go and then enable, right, classic console, it sets up, and so you can import your worksheet that's already there in your this environment into there, and then you can start working from there as well. Okay, so this is what it is about. And then what else we have to talk? So this is a third party, and then when you come to this particular so preview gives you, there are two, whatever the preview that we can do, right, that can be shown here. And then where is it? We have data marketplace is a preview, data exchange is a preview, we have dashboards that you can create, that is a preview, and then we have what else? Yeah, pretty much that's what it is. So that is one thing, and then there is another thing called Partner Connect. So did we talk about it? No, right? Have we spoken about all this stuff? Guys, you have to talk to me, please. No. Okay. So Snowflake has partnered with many companies and the technologies as well. So they also work like a cloud platform, all of them. And whenever you're talking about data warehousing, right, there are different areas. One is data ingestion, one is data transformation, one is visualization and analytical part of it. So there are a lot of partners who Snowflake has already tied up with, so you can sign up with them as well, and then you can start working on the cloud basis kind of thing. So you have to pay for them. Okay. And talent stitch, these are some of the data ingestion tools that you can work on. And then you can have data hubs for data CI/CD, like deploying code and all this stuff. And cloud data modeling, if you want to do any modeling on a database. SQL Medallion is like a famous data ingestion tool. Like Informatica, you can have Informatica, so EC Informatica. And hunters for the AML activity that you want to do. ClickView for this and developing dashboards. Okay. So there are a lot of things that they have signed up, and if you are already working on any of them, and if you want to get onto the Partner Connect, you can still get onto the Partner Connect. Okay.
Apart from these apps, if we want to connect ETL ab initio, how will we connect different tool?
If ab initio is, then you have to go and check for the Snowflake connector for ab initio, and they might not have partnered with Snowflake. So then probably on your server you have to set up the Snowflake connector and then connect and you start working on it.
Okay.
Okay. So now, and then we have seen the shares. I have talked about it. If you are trying to share something to anybody in the same region, for example, if you go to your worksheets, there are two shares. This is one share that was given to us, and then if you go and change your role to account admin, right? So where is this account? Sorry. I'm going to account admin, and you'll see one more database called Snowflake database. Snowflake database is the one which has all the metadata of the entire account. How many databases are there, how many schemas, how many tables, how did you do data ingestion, loading of data into table. It has all the history of all the details in the metadata. And this is owned by the Snowflake, and account admin is a super user that you have. And there are other ways that you can access this metadata. So when we go to the security part of it, right, I'll explain you how this can be done. How do we access, how do we grant access to the Snowflake database and all this stuff. Okay. So and okay, that is pretty much about okay. So I think we have covered pretty much everything about it, right? So let me show you some more stuff that we are going to talk about. Okay. So this part is Snowflake architect cloud services. So independent services managed entirely by Snowflake. That's other thing, but so there are high availability, built-in fault tolerance, and high availability. That means continuous availability. I was talking to you yesterday, right? Whenever Snowflake you create an account on it, it will have 3 copies of data. Even if one particular node goes down, it will have the other 2 copies. So they are nothing but the S3 buckets, that they are making 3 copies of the S3 buckets, and then they are having the disaster management. If something goes down, something else can be connected and you can work on it, kind of thing. Okay, so you have the security. All the data that sits in Snowflake is completely encrypted, and it's metadata driven cost based optimizer. That means when we talk about the performance part of it, I'll explain you what is data pruning, what is metadata statistics, what is micro partitions, how data gets stored in Snowflake. Everything we're going to talk about it. Okay, and we talked about the time travel. So did we go over all the editions? Yesterday we went through all the editions, right?
Yes, sir. You covered
Each
all
and
the
every
editions.
edition, the capabilities of each and every edition, right?
Yes, sir.
Did we not talk about all this stuff? Yeah. So guys, you have to speak to me, please. If you don't speak to me, then I don't know whether you are getting me or not. So you have to talk to me on that, please. Okay. And you have time travel. We talked about time travel and zero copy cloning. So cloning is another facility that Snowflake provides. It's called zero copy cloning or cloning. For example, you have a database and you want to make a dev database out of your prod, or dev database out of your stage. Then you can clone the database, and it doesn't take more than a couple of minutes, max 5-6 minutes. So that's it. How big? It depends on the size of the database. Not more than 10 minutes at any point of time. So when you clone a database, right, you have the entire set ready for you, and you can rename it as whatever the dev database, and you can start working on it. And the beauty of the cloning is, right, so you are not having an extra copy of storage. For example, if your database is 10 terabytes, when you clone, you won't get so it's zero unless until you go insert some data into your cloned copy. So then it behaves differently. So if you don't change any of the data and you're just reading, then you're not charged anything. Once you clone, they both become independent, and then you can insert data into the source, you can insert data into clone, nothing gets mapped up, everything behaves independently. Okay, so then we'll talk about.
So when we clone, can we
So we
specify
have a
which?
complete session on cloning, and then we'll talk about it as well. And data sharing, we have already spoken about it. And then transaction management, which is part of cloud services area, which takes care of the insert, update, delete. That also we have spoken about it. Okay. And this is what it is: the availability zones, primary availability zone, and I was talking about 3 nodes, right? So how data gets stored, and this is one of the picture of it. Okay. So if you look at this, right, you have the load balancer, which goes primary availability zone, second availability zone 2, availability zone 3, and you have load balancer, you have metadata, cloud services, everything is this one. So residency across multiple zones. That means if normally this is in the S3 buckets, and then S3 has some characteristics which says that 11 nines of durability, 4.9, 4 nines of availability, and zero downtime, tremendous effect on pace of innovation, bug fixing, and everything, right? So we'll talk what is this 11 nines, what is this 4 nines. So I'll give you a little bit introduction about S3 buckets, because that is pretty much important. The reason is that whenever you store some data, Snowflake automatically goes and stores into your S3 buckets. So I'll give you some orientation on what S3 buckets is, so that you can get a clarity of it, and then that becomes much more easier for you. Okay. And we have talked about this one, compute layer, and then the storage layer and everything. So these are all pretty much the reason why I'm showing this extra slide deck is, right, when if you're trying to write SnowPro examination, I wanted to cover a little more about the SnowPro part of it. So that is the reason I have prepared a couple of other slides as well. Okay. So Snowflake manages scalability for each service. continuous ability, fault tolerance, stateless architecture. So services don't talk to each other. So only Snowflake takes care of it. All state is versioned and stored in Foundation DB. All the metadata, and there are other things that they use a separate database called Foundation DB, and they store all the statistics of it in the in the Foundation DB. So they use another database for storing all the metadata of your tables or views or whatever you have. Okay. And this SQL optimizer service is cost-based optimizer, how it gathers data and all this stuff. So built-in join order optimization supports any and all data models, 3NF, third normal form, Snowflake schema, star schema, data vault schema, optimization for star schema, bloom filters, broadcast joins, all this stuff that Snowflake is going to support. Okay. So this when we talk about the performance, right, we'll just talk a little bit more into this particular thing, and I'll come back onto this so that you can understand how the partition pruning works and all this stuff. We come back to this particular thing, and then we'll talk a little more detail. Okay. So far, any questions for me on this?
For data sharing and S3 buckets, where in
I
AWS,
couldn't
right?
hear you properly.
Hello.
Did somebody ask me any question?
Shaker, where the data is going to store in AWS S3
Oh my God.
buckets? How we are going
Hold on,
to
guys. I was able to hear you very low voice is coming from me. How about my voice? Is it okay for you guys?
Yeah, your voice is fine, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, can you hear me properly?
Yeah. My question is how we are going to share the data from AWS.
I cannot hear you. Hold on. Let me change my headset. Guys, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah,
Unable to
now
hear
I'm
me.
able to. So something happened. Your voice was very low. I couldn't hear. Yeah, go ahead. Talk to me, please.
Okay. How to share the data from AWS S3 buckets? What is the authentication is required to share, and how we will allow to access?
How do you want to share the data between S3 buckets to Snowflake? Is that what your question is?
No, from S3 bucket, AWS data is going to store, right? From there, from one
Mm-hmm.
account to other account, how we are going to share, and what are the
Mm-hmm.
authentications required to share the data?
Okay. So there is another session. The next session that we are going to talk about is data ingestion. So data ingestion is where there are two kinds of data ingestion in these two chapters. One is loading data from your flat files, and the other one is loading data from your S3 buckets. So when I talk about it, right, I'll tell you how to do it. But for that, you guys have to sign up with your AWS free account. Yeah, they will ask you your account details, your credit card, debit card details. I'll tell you one day prior so that you can go and create your trial account on AWS. Then we'll do a workshop kind of thing where you sit on front of your systems, and then I'll tell you how to connect, how to set up. We have a very big session on that.
Okay.
Sorry, somebody was asking me something. Somebody asked me something. What was that? Okay. So if nothing is there, let's go to so we have spoken much about the architecture part of it, right? And the first thing is, right, we are going to talk about data ingestion, first part of it. So what is data ingestion? And we are now, you now understood what is virtual warehouses, what is the roles that you have to choose, and where are your databases, what is your schemas, how to create tables. You can have the table creation, you can go create a table, and now you have everything with you. So now your database is set up, and I have spoken about how to download your SnowSQL, how to connect to SnowSQL. That part is also done. So connectivity, you can do it from web UI, or you can SnowSQL, and you can connect to Snowflake into your trial account. So the next thing is, right, how do you load data into Snowflake? So there are if you have a flat files, what are the capabilities of Snowflake? We are going to talk about it. Okay, so if you look at this particular diagram, right, yeah, Snowflake is something, as I told you, right? It tries to be a little more synonymous with the physical warehouse. The data warehouse means it wanted to be little synonymous with the warehouse. So, for example, you have a warehouse, and then in the warehouse you organize your stuff, your products, or whatever the material, right? If a truck comes, you get all your data, putting it in the staging area, and from there you send it to your warehouse and then organize and load into your bins and all this stuff. And the same way, whenever you are trying to send out some stuff from your physical warehouse, right, you get all your data from your warehouse, put it into staging area, and then you dump it into the truck, and the truck leaves. This is what happens in a physical warehouse. So Snowflake has come up with something similar. So you have your database here, and in database you have a table, and then when you are trying to load your data from your local file system, you have three staging areas. One is a user staging area, the other one is the internal staging area, and the other one is table staging area. So you can go and then create virtual staging areas so that you can put your files. Think that files are your stuff that you have to put it into your data warehouse. You can put your files into the staging area, and from there you can load it into your table. Okay, so pretty much as similar to the physical warehouse, you load your files or put your files into a staging area, and that particular staging area from there to your table, and this staging area is in the cloud. This is the local file system. When you have a local file system, and you can, from your local file system, you can put it on the cloud. And when you're trying to put it on the cloud, right, so the moment you say put command, and then the data goes and sits into the cloud. By the time you start the put command, right, the file gets encrypted and then gets pushed into the stage environment. Okay, I'll show you an example, but we're going to talk in detail about all this stuff. So let's go, and then I'll show you something here. So put file, this command you're going to remember that. Okay, 1 second. I have some file called emp.csv. I have too many emps. Okay, this is my folder /emp.csv, and I'm putting into the user stage. Okay, so now my file is sitting in the cloud. So when it's trying to push it, this local file system, the local file is in this particular local my laptop, and then from there I have pushed it into the cloud. Where is this particular user stage? This is in the cloud. The user stage is in the cloud. We are going to talk about all this stuff. I just wanted to show. So the moment you try to send the file, right, the file, the CSV file, if you see, this is zipped and it's completely encrypted. So that particular thing is called data in transit. So when the file starts moving to the cloud, the file is first encrypted and then it zipped again, and then it's pushed into the stage environment. Got it? So let's go and look at all the stuff that we are going to talk about, right? So this is what it is. So you can get your data, and what we call it is, if you have any continuous data flow, that means you are getting your data in batches every half an hour, every 1 hour continuously, then that is called continuous data flow. And there is a new capability of Snowflake called Snowpipe. For example, if you are familiar with big data environment, right, you have Kafka or any streams that you can queuing mechanism that you can queue, right? So if you have that kind of setup, you can integrate with Snowflake, and that particular thing is called Snowpipe. So that is for the continuous data load. And if you have local file system, you can load your data into local file system into any of the stages, from there copy into table. Or you can directly, if you have any S3 data in your S3 buckets and Azure blobs or Google storage, you can get your data into your table. So you can use bulk loading. There is a capability of Snowflake which runs in parallel, and that is called bulk loading, which reads all of your files in parallel and then loads the data pretty much fast. So that's a very good techno advantage of this. So, and the other part of it, right, so whenever you're trying to load your files into your stages, you can query the stage as if you're querying your table, and you can do transformations on top of it. You can change the data, you can use functions, and even so you can, that is a staging area basically. So stage is nothing but a staging area. You get your data into staging area, from there you do some transformation, and you can push it into your table directly. Okay, so this internal stages work as a staging area. Okay, so we will talk about Snowpipe separately. Snowpipe is a separate a topic altogether. We'll have a separate session on the Snowpipe. The first part we are going to do is, right, how do we load data from the local file system into any of the stages and then loading into the table. Okay, once this is done, right, then we'll be talking about how do we load from S3 buckets to the table. And somebody was asking me, how do you integrate with S3 buckets and all this stuff, right? We have an entire session, one big session for integrating with S3 buckets, how do you do, and all this stuff. Okay,
Sir,
so this is what, yeah.
quick question, sir. So internal stage will be in Snowflake and external stage will be the cloud services like AWS S3 or Azure. Is that so?
That is correct, yeah.
Okay, okay. Thank you, sir.
And you won't be paying for the storage if your files are sitting in S3 or Azure blobs or anywhere. Once you get the data into Snowflake, then only you pay for the storage. But when you're trying to load from your local file system into the stage, right, and you have to pay for the storage of the file that you're putting in the stage. You understood, right? You have a file and you have pushed your file into the stage. That means Snowflake think that it's an internal stage. You have pushed your file into the internal stage. I'll tell you how to do that. But once your file goes and sits here, right, that is part of the Snowflake. Then you have to pay for the storage charges, even if it's in the internal stage. But if your file is already lying in S3 buckets or Azure blobs or GCP, right, then you don't need to you're already paying for your storage for the S3 buckets, right? So you don't need to pay for Snowflake unless until you get that file data into a table into Snowflake, then you have to pay for the storage.
Got it, sir.
Okay, so and then how do you load data into Snowflake? So there is Snowflake. If you have limited data, bulk data, continuous data. There are three kinds of data. Limited data is something like 100k rows, 50k rows, and then you want to load it one time, then you have one way of doing it. And if you have huge files that come every day into a Linux boxes, and then from there you have to load into your Snowflake, that is called bulk loading, and that is another way. And you have continuous data. It comes every in batches, every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, every half an hour you get some data. You want to automate so that it gets loaded into your table. That is the third way. That is called the continuous data. Okay, so how do you load the limited data? So limited data can be loaded from web UI. It is a dialog mode. You might have in each and every technology or software where you can use this, right? So let me go and show you this particular thing. Okay, so this is the web UI. This is called web UI. You have to get familiarity with the terminology web UI. And I have a table called EMP. So what is my database? I'm going to change it to SFDB dev. Sorry, yeah, SFDB, and my schema is SF schema. So SFDB and schema SF schema. So I don't have a table. I have a script for employee table. I'll just show you. I'll create the table and load some data into it. Yeah, edit notepad, and then so this is the table script that I have. I'm going to share the table script as well because we'll be working on this particular employee table as a reference. So if you go to the top right, I'm trying to create a table called department. Create table department. When you're trying to do, what is the database that I'm using? I'm using ESFTV. Okay, and then schema is of schema, and the account role is sysadmin role. Okay, I created database. You see, right? The table got created, and then I'm inserting. So in a regular database, right, you have to write insert statement for each and every line if you want to insert some rows into a table. In Snowflake, you don't need do that, so you can just say comma 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 values, and it inserts all the data. Row 1, number of rows inserted 4. Okay, and the same thing with employee table. I'm going to create an employee table, and I am here loading higher data as varchar. You remember this, guys? I'm creating a table EMP. Okay, and then now I'm trying to insert some data into a table, EMP table. So this is an Oracle script that I copied, so there are little changes. I forgot to do that all the time, and then okay, 1 second, I'll make some changes here. Okay, there are some dates, right? So there is some typos here, so I'm trying to fix them. Hold on. Date if so that's pretty much insert into AMP values, and then first record until here, comma, second record. You keep on adding records, and whenever you insert, right, the table gets inserted. Data gets 15 rows got inserted, and now there is no need of commit. In this section, the auto commit is true, so the data is automatically committed. Select star from EMP. Okay, so I got this data. The employee name, e-name, manager, what of the regular EMP table that you have learned. So now I'm going to delete all the data. Delete from EMP. and then I'm going to load from web UI. This is called web UI. So if you want to load the data into a particular table, right, you have to go to databases, and then where is your table, employee, right, and then the moment you select, it says load data, load table. You click on this particular thing, and then it will ask you, the first thing is, right, what is your warehouse, and you choose your warehouse. Next, so select the files that you want to load. I'm selecting the files. I'm going to my training, emp.csv. Okay, next. If you look at it, right, there's the file format. So what is, see, whenever you're trying to load, you have to, the system has to know what kind of file is it, what kind of format is it. For example, if it is CSV, it does it have double quotes, single quotes, how do it handles nulls and all this stuff, right? So for that you have to have a file format. So there is like a table, create table name. There is a file format that you can create in Snowflake, and that is called a first class object. First class object is table is a first class object. That means you can create a table, you can create a file format in the Snowflake. Then how do you do that? So if you go and click, I don't have any file formats here, because if I had any file formats I would have gotten in the drop down. I don't have anything. I'm just trying to create a file format for you. Click on the name, so my CSV format. Okay, and schema name, in which schema am I creating it? SF schema. What is the format type? That is CSV. You have different formats: CSV, JSON, XML, Avro, ORC, Park. I am choosing CSV. And compression method, by default it is gunzip. We have seen that, right? Put command, whenever you put something, it has already zipped it. So the by default is gunzip. You don't need to change that. And separator, you might have comma, you might have vertical bar, you might have tab, none, or you might have other special characters like tilde. So oops, sorry. Okay, and then my schema is as a schema, auto, and then you can go and change. If you select other, right, you can enter tilde. So whatever special character you have, you can choose it. For now I'm going to see. And then a row separator. What is a row separator? Whenever at the end of the each line, what do you want to have? And if you have any headers, right, how do you do that? So if you look at my emp.csv, right, where is my emp.csv? If you look at my emp.csv, I'm opening it with a text pad, and it has a header in it. Do you want to skip the header or not? So I can go back and skip the header. Number of lines to skip, 1, right? Fields optionally enclosed by. I don't have any fields that are double quoted. So single quoted, double quoted, I don't have anything at all. Okay, and I said none, and then null string /n, that should be fine. We'll talk in detail about null string later. So this is what it is. And if I say, if you go and click on show SQL, right, this is a SQL file that you can create. Okay, so let me show you how create file format. In this particular schema, type is equal to CSV, compression is equal to auto, field delimiter comma, record delimiter is /n, skip header 1, field optionally enclosed by none, trim space false, error on column count mismatch is equal to true. These are some of the default things that come. Okay, escape and close field, and date format is auto, timestamp format is auto, and null if is /n. So this is what the SQL it's gonna run behind the moment if you say create. So I'm going to say close, and then finish. I have my CSV format. And if I come here and then in my show file formats, I got the CSV format that is already created on my CSV format. Can you see here? Okay. And then next. So what do you want to do if the load fails? So what should the load do if encounters an error while parsing a file? Because we are trying to load a file emb.csv, right? What should it do? So do not load any data into the file. Go click on the show SQL. See, can you see, right? First it's putting, and then it is trying to copy. So to tell you, right, the data ingestion is a two-phase mechanism. That means first it has to get the data, because we are trying to load from our local file system. It has to put it in the stage area. From that particular stage area, it has to load it into the table. So whenever it's trying to load it into the table, it does use copy command. So it uses the bulk copy fashion of copy command. So this copy command has very good importance in the data ingestion part. And then this runs things in parallelly, and I'll try to demonstrate when I'm trying to unload, export millions of records, how this thing works happy. And I'm going to demonstrate and show you how much time it took, what is the best way of performance of data ingestion. I have everything, but for you right now, if I go deep, right, I don't want you to get confused. And so what I'm telling is, right, if I'm trying to put the file into the stage environment, and from there I'm copying it into the table. This is the employee table from this particular stage environment, and file format is my CSV format. On error, skip file, because when we told here, right, what you want to do when you are trying to encounter, do not load any data into the file. If you say skip file, it doesn't load the file. Okay. Stop loading, roll back, and return. So the second one is stop loading, roll back, and return the error. That means, for example, you have a very big file of 100K, and then you have already started loading it, and then all of a sudden after 10,000 records you ran into some issues. What do you want to do? The file, you unload whatever the data that you have inserted into the table, you roll back and throw out the error and come out. That's what it is. So for this thing, right, let me go and see how it looks like. The same thing, it has the put command, and then copy into this particular table. File format is my file format. On error, abort statement, and then purge is equal to true. Abort statement means it goes and then rolls back all the data that it has so far inserted, because we are not telling the skip file. We are trying to process the data, and we have about 50K records. After 10K records, you encountered an error. What do you want to do? You want to roll back the entire 10,000 rows that got inserted and come out. That is called the abort statement. Okay. And the third one, right, do not load any data into the file if the error count exceeds. For example, you know that there might be some 10 errors or something, and if it's loading the file in the first 10 rows, if you say threshold like 10, if you encounter 10 errors, 10 lines are a failure, then kill this particular load. Don't load the data. If you go and look up this particular thing, right, it says on error skip file underscore 10. It goes and checks if there are 10 errors. After that, it skips the entire file. Okay. And then if you select continue loading valid data from the file, that means continue. You'll see on error continue. It loads partially. If there are any errors in any of the lines, it goes, skips them, and loads the data. Okay. So I'm going to select this particular option, and I'll say load. encrypting the files, staging the file. See, first it goes because my file is in the local system, right? The moment if you are trying to load into Snowflake, it encrypts the files because that is called data in transit. It is traveling to the cloud, traveling on the network, is traveling to the cloud, so somebody can hack that as well. So the first thing what Snowflake does is, right, it goes and encrypts the file on the fly, and then it pushes to the cloud environment. First it encrypts, then it zips the file, and then it pushes to the cloud. Okay, and I see 15 rows passed, 15 rows loaded, and I had 15 rows. If you go and look at this, so I have 15 rows. I have omitted the header, and it has loaded the 15 rows. Got it?
Shekhar sir, quick question.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I have 100 records, okay? 50 records I have loaded already. 51 record has encountered error, okay? If I am going to load again the data, I need to load from 51 record onwards, not to load from the beginning. How we will do?
Yeah, you are breaking up too much, but I understood the question. You were telling that you got a file and it had 50 rows, and from second day you want to load from 51 onwards. Is that correct?
No. For example, I have 100 records, okay? 50 records
Mm-hmm.
has loaded already. 51 records has encountered error.
Mm-hmm.
So the job has failed. It's not loaded. So
Mm-hmm.
the again I have corrected the file and load again. So the data is going to load from 51 record onwards, not from the beginning again,
Okay.
for saving the time.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any option?
No, there are a couple of ways that you can handle that. In Snowflake, when a file is loaded, the file metadata is also loaded. It knows, and then when you are loading, either you can skip the file or partially load the file, and then you have the mechanism of identifying the data that was failed, and you can
Hmm.
fix them. Okay,
Okay.
and load that particular data again.
Okay. Only particular data, not.
Yeah, not from the beginning.
Okay. Fine. Thanks.
Okay, so this is pretty much about. So if I go and query the table right now, right, I have deleted everything. Now I got this 14 records that I was speaking of. Okay, so this is called limited data set of loading. Okay, this is the limited data. If you have 500k, 100k max on the fly, you can do and then check it out. Okay, you don't have complete control on the data that you are doing because Snowflake internally does that. The second one is, right, bulk data. How do you load the bulk data? And the continuous data is the third one. Okay, before getting into this, right, we just want to know what are the staging environments that we have. So in Snowflake there are 3 internal stages and the other one is an external stage. So internal stage means that is part of the Snowflake. So you can have a table stage. That means if you create a table, by default it will have a stage. That means you can push your file into that particular stage. And then is a named stage, like create stage, my stage, and you can push your files into that particular. It's nothing but a directory kind of thing where you can park your files on the cloud. Staging area is nothing but a directory that you can park your files on the cloud. So it's called named stage. Named stage means you create a stage, create stage, my stage, and then it gets created, and that can be temporary, that can be permanent. So create temporary stage, my temp stage means it creates a temporary stage which is valid for 24 hours. After that, the files in the stage is gone. If you just say create stage, my stage, it's a permanent stage and you can keep your files unless until you go and manually delete it, or as part of the loading command, if you purge it, then the file gets deleted. Okay. And user stage is for a particular user, whomever is logged in, right? He has a private space, so he can load your data into the particular user stage, and you can load it into your table. The advantages and disadvantages of all this, right? For example, you have a named stage, create stage, my stage, or create stage, ETL stage, and you have about 10 users who are working on the ETL data ingestion part of it, right? You can grant permissions on this stage to 10 of them so that they can access this particular stage and load data into the table. So you're trying to have a security, and you're trying to make sure that people can work in tandem, and then you can push your data automatically into this particular stage, and you can load the data. That is first part of it. And table stages, right? Each table will have a stage. For example, you have data that is coming from Oracle, and whomever has access to that particular table can load the data into the table stage, and then they can load it into the table. That is the advantage of having table stage. And user stage is only for that particular user. All the users cannot share it. It's for you, and it's a private space for you, and if you want to have something in your tables user stage, from there you can load it into your table. Okay, that's what the stages are. If you see table stage, you have a table stage. It's a name stage, the name of the stage. And user stage, you have user stage. And name stage, they are temporary and permanent. Okay, external stages are pointing to your S3 buckets, Azure blobs, GCPs, Google storage, and all this stuff. Okay. So how do you represent table stage? So this is what it is, right? So I have explained all what a table stage is, what a user stage is, what an internal named stage is, external stage is. Okay, that's what I've explained so far. And then how do you see the stages? So let me go and tell you. So if you want to clear something in SnowSQL, right? Control K, sorry, Control L. You have to remember this. Control L is a command to clear the screen. Normally in command line it's CLS, but here it's Control L. Okay, I'll say show stages. If I have any stages, it shows me. I don't have any stages right now. So first thing, you can create only internal stage, internal named stage, and internal temporary stage. The table stage and user stage are already created by Snowflake. The moment you create a table, you'll get the table stage automatically. The moment a user is created, the user stage is automatically created. Only the named stage is the one that you can create. The first thing, I'm going to create a named stage. Create stage, my stage. Table show stages. It shows the stages, what is the database schema, name of the stage, and all this stuff. Okay, how do you see the data that is lying in your stage? Because we thought it's a directory, right? There is a command that you have to remember: list at the rate of stage name, my stage. At the rate is common for all the stages. List at the rate of my stage. Okay, there are no files. Now I am trying to put, as we spoke about, right? The data that we are trying to load into Snowflake, it's a two-step process. First is putting the file, because we are talking about from the local file, is putting your file into the cloud, from there loading into the table. So putting the file, we use a put command, or loading into the table, we use copy command. Okay, so how do we put the file? We have seen the put, right? Put file colon slash slash. Oops, I've copied this. Put file colon slash slash, and this is my file slash, okay, emp.csv. And where do I put My stage. I have created a stage. You have to remember this, guys. Put file, file path, and stage. To which stage you want to load. You see, now you see this, right? emp.csv, emp.csv.gz, original size is 723 bytes. It has compressed by 50%, 366. The compression mode is gunzip, and it's uploaded to the cloud. And if you want to look at this particular, what are the files that in my stage, right? The command that you have to use, list at the rate of stage name, my stage. Okay, so this is what it is, list at the rate of my stage. And I have already created a table, EMP table that we already created. I have shown you how to create a table, right? How do we see? So this is the named stage, or create or replace stage, temporary stage, my temp stage. Okay, I can put the files into my temp stage as well, and this holds good as long as my session is valid or 24 hours. If my session, if I come out of the session, I won't find this particular my temp stage, but my stage will still be there. If I say quit, if you want to come out of this, right, you can say quit. Goodbye. Now I'm connecting back. So use sfdb, use schema, sf schema, show stages. It shows only my stage. If I create one second, temporary stage, right here I'm creating one more time. The one that which I have created is gone. If I show stages, right, you see my temp stage, and it says internal, temporary, internal. Okay, normally we employ temporary stages for loading temporary work files, and then if you are so the moment if you put a file in the stage, it's gonna be there unless until you go and purge it. So the file that you're putting in the stage is accounts for your storage, like the data that is sitting in a table. The files that is sitting in your stage also accounts for your data storage credits. We have storage credits, we have compute credits, two of them, right? So this storage credits, it includes the stages as well, so you have to go and purge normally. So now we have seen about the, we have already show tables, we know the tables, right? Okay, and if you want to see the stage of the particular table, emp, right, list at the rate of percent emp. You have to remember this syntax, percent emp, so there is nothing in. And for the user stage, right, list at the rate of tilde. And you see a lot of worksheets, right? You have already logged in, and then these are the worksheets that you have in your account. Those will show up here in your user stage. Okay, all the worksheets are there in your user stage, and I have already loaded a file before, right, emp.csv.gz, and this is also in the user stage. You can, all the worksheets that you work upon for as a user, whenever you logs in, all the worksheets are stored in your user stage, and then you can still put your files into the user stage, and then you can load it into a table or whatever you want to do. So there are three stages: named stage, user stage, table stage. In named stage we have two, one is permanent, the other one is temporary. These are the staging areas. How do you see the names, named stage? You go and then say go show stages, will show you all the named stages only, and the table stage and the user stage are not part of the metadata. That comes automatically whenever you create a table. The table stage gets created automatically. And how do you see that? list at the rate of person table name. At the rate of person table name will give you the table stage. List at the rate of the stage that you have already created, my stage, that gives you the content, that shows you the content in your particular named stage. And list at the rate of tilde. Tilde is something similar in Linux environment. If you say tilde, it takes you to home directory, right? So something at the rate of tilde will show you all the files in the your user stage. Okay. So with this, I'll wrap up the class. I can take, if you have any questions, I can answer. But I have given all the steps clearly how to do and all this. Let's go a little slower because you're trying to sink in with the new Snowflake environment, right? I want to go a little slower right now. Once you are comfortable, then we can pick up the pace and then we can do all kinds of real-time scenarios of data ingestion. How do you load the file, same file? There are many scenarios in data ingestion. So we will look into all of them. So any questions for me, please?
Yeah, sir. I have couple of questions. So the first one, so if you are loading files from external storage to Snowflake, so there will be chances or scenarios kind of those file may get it's not loaded and with the error message and all that scenario also happen while the loading.
Yeah, we'll see all kinds of scenarios. What all the real-time scenarios, how it happens, how do you log the errors, how do you put it into an archive directory after everything is processed, how do you purge the file, and what if something fails in between, and there are about 10 files, how do you load 10 files in a single shot? What is the performance, what should be the file size that you want to have, what is the best optimal file size that you can load into Snowflake. We're going to talk heavily about data ingestion.
Okay, so good. And one more thing, sir. So on the this one data loading time, so I have seen the things only on the delimiters like comma separated or pipeline, this and all, but there is no fixed size limiter or not. Is there?
You mean the size of the file?
No. Fixed like kind of spaces in between the tabs, like employee number and the employee name. If there is a comma separated file, right? So like that, fixed sizes like tab we have used or spaces have been used in the file like that.
Yeah, tab separated. I've shown you when we are trying to do the dialogue, right? Tab separated, comma separated, special character separated, pipe separated. You can have any kind of things. So we can load. If you have any sample file, if you can send it to me, I can show you how to load that one as well.
Okay.
Shekhar, and also this part of loading, what kind of files can we load? The structured and unstructured data also into stage and tables,
So
right?
you're breaking up. Come again, please. Can we load?
Can we load structured data and unstructured data also, like media files and different kind of data?
No. Snowflake doesn't support unstructured data. Probably they have released a statement last week that they are trying to have the enhancement for unstructured data. But Snowflake supports now structured as well as semi-structured. JSON, XML, ORC, Parquet, Avro. These file formats it supports. And then how do you load the JSON data? How do you load the XML data? And Parquet, they are once you know how to load the CSV, right? Then there are
Yeah.
other ways of loading the semi-structured formats. We'll talk about it in a separate session.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, guys. Any other? Can we wrap up the class? And tomorrow there won't be any class. We'll be catching up on Tuesday.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Sir, from next week onwards, I'll come up with 2 scenario questions which are important for interview. Let's discuss in the class, sir. End of the session. Just 2 questions per class.
No problem.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
అన్నారు మేము వాడుతున్నామని ఇంతకు
Thank you, Jacob.
సార్ అడుగుతానండి నాకు తెలిసిన